I thought it was a great speech on a number of levels, but certainly the new overtime regulations that he's pushing is something that I think many of us are very happy to see. You know, for too long we've allowed the number of workers who are eligible for overtime to decrease. It's been sort of slowly eroded, and they've put new regulations on the table that will be commented on over the next time period that would increase the number of people for whom, if you work more than 40 hours a week, then you'll actually get paid that time and a half that the law says you should. So that's a good thing. It's a good thing for American families. It's a good thing for business, ultimately, and it'll certainly help to boost wages for millions of families all across America.
Heather, what's the risk, though, that companies will decide to go to part-time workers or just hire more part-time workers rather than pay one person for more overtime?
Well, it's going to go both ways. So on the one hand, you got that productive employee, and you need that little bit of extra work, that extra hour, 2, 3, 4, 5, above 40 hours. Firms are certainly going to tap into that, but it may encourage them to hire more workers, and that actually would be a good thing as well. You know, we have not fully recovered all of the jobs that we lost during the Great Recession. Employment rates remain fairly low relative to where they were before the crisis, and so actually encouraging employers to hire more workers would be a good thing. So it's a win-win on both sides, I think.
I want to refer to your study that the Washington Center for Equitable Growth conducted, in which you found incomes for the bottom 99% of families rose 3.3% last year. That was the biggest annual gain in 15 years, but still much less than the almost 10% gain for the top 1%. Heather, as you look to recalibrate that, what is the priority? Is it to restrain the growth in the 1% salary?
Well, I think we have to focus on both ends of the spectrum. So on the one hand, we need to continue to do whatever we can to make sure that wages are rising with productivity, that as the economy grows, the American worker and the American family actually benefits from those gains in a way that's fair. And then on the other hand, we do need to make sure that all the benefits of economic growth do not continue to go just to those at the very, very top. It creates distortions in our economy, which isn't good in the long term for economic growth, and it's certainly not good for the vast majority of American families. So finding ways where we can grow together is where we should focus our policy attention.
Heather, you did say in the study that the bottom 99% of income earnings registered beat the best real income growth in the last 15 years. So is wage growth actually better than today's, say, jobs number, with average hourly earnings just up 2% year on year would indicate?
Well, you know, there are two different data sets. So, I mean, on the one hand, the data that we had put out earlier in the week was for the full bottom 99% of people who pay taxes. And the data that came out today was for the last month of wage earners. But certainly what we're seeing in both data sets is that wage growth for the majority still remains too slow relative to productivity gains, and that it's too slow relative to the gains that are going to those at the very, very top. If we continue along the trajectory that we're on now, we're going to see a continued increase in the share of gains in the economy going to capital and going to folks at the very, very top of the income distribution rather than to the vast majority of American families. That's the fundamental and most profoundly important policy question in front of us, which is, of course, the theme of the speech that the president just gave.
Heather, how do you get the private sector to play ball with this idea of raising wages for minimum wage workers? What incentives have not been thought up yet that should be proposed?
Well, to increase wages for workers at the bottom, of course, you can raise the minimum wage. You can find ways to increase total compensation, making sure that workers who need access to paid sick days or paid family leave are able to get those benefits and not have to lose their jobs is another way of increasing the take-home pay. The overtime regulations, again, will certainly increase take-home pay for workers, especially in the bottom half of the wage distribution. So there's a lot of policy measures we can take. It's really important to note, too, that when we raise wages for people at the bottom, but across the income spectrum, that is associated with less turnover. And that actually is good for business, right? It's good for not just business, but for families and for the whole economy. People can develop their skills. They can contribute more to that firm. So there's some definite win-win solutions here.